And away we go. Welcome to 49er Forecast. Happy Saturday, January the 3rd. Happy 2026. Happy game day, faithful. That's right. As we get KNBR's coverage of Niner football rolling live here on a Saturday morning, Larry Krueger with you for 49er Forecast. And we got a great hour for you, a great live hour. That's right. We can take your phone calls. Who do you like tonight? Tell me why. 808 KNBR, the phone number. We can jump into some of your calls if you want to give us your predictions. What a game we're looking forward to tonight. I just can't wait. Cannot wait. The Niners and the Seahawks, and the Niners. We got this in week 1 up there. The Niners won that game, and we're getting the rematch down here, and the Niners will be wearing the black unis with the black helmets. I'm really looking forward to seeing what that looks like. And there could be rain in the forecast. Oh, my goodness. Wet weather. Somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose. But we got a great hour for you. The voice of the Hawks is going to join us this hour. Steve Raible has been covering Seattle sports for a number of years. Interesting guy. Was an original member of the expansion Seattle Seahawks way back when. Second round pick in the 76th draft. Played with the great Steve Largent there in Seattle. Also played with the Seahawks 1976 through 1981. And, 84 career games, 68 receptions, 3 touchdowns. And he was always had interest in doing broadcast work, and he was offered the opportunity in June of 1982 to be part of the Seahawks broadcast, and he's been fantastic, and has done an incredible job. And he'll join us this hour, and we'll talk a little bit about the Hawks and how he sees the matchup. He's in the Washington Sports Hall of Fame. Very interesting guy for sure, and he'll be on the call on the Seahawks radio side with Dave Wyman, who I also caught up with this week. Dave Wyman played at Stanford, was once a teammate of Brian Bosworth. We talked some Boz, so you can check that out on the Krug Show on YouTube. Put that out, or I think we're putting that out later this afternoon, or late this morning, or early this afternoon. So look for that. But tonight we get the showdown, the Niners and the Seahawks. If the Niners win, they get the number 1 seed and most importantly, a first-round bye in the NFC playoffs. If the Seahawks win, they get that, right? And now what happens to the Niners if they lose tonight? Well, we don't want to entertain it, but we will at least give you the information. If the Niners lose and the Rams win, the Rams are the 5 seed and the Niners are the 6 seed. Okay. If the Niners lose and the Rams also lose, the Niners are the 5 seed and will take on the Tampa Carolina winner from earlier today. And I think it's going to be Tampa, but you never know. Carolina's the younger, playing better. Tampa's probably the better team. Niners beat Carolina, of course, earlier this year. Niners lost in Tampa to Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, but that Tampa team is not this Tampa team, and this Tampa team has lost 7 of 8, and I think 4 in a row, and they're not necessarily playing well. So that game's the first game. So there you have it. The Niners will either be the 1 seed, the 5 seed, or the 6 seed, and they could wind up playing Carolina. They could wind up playing Tampa. They could wind up playing Philly. And Raf was suggesting to me in my ear before we went live here that there is a scenario where the Niners could face Chicago in the first round. So I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind another rematch with the Bears, though I do think the Bears are a really good football team. But let's get into the matchup tonight, because I think this one's really interesting on a lot of fronts. I think Seattle's the better team. I really do. They're number 2 in points scored per game. They're number 2 in points allowed per game. In a world where points are everything and yards mean nothing, they're really, really good. And they may have the best statistical profile of any of the playoff teams in either conference. They're really good. But there are some things to point to that make you go, well, wait a second. Who do you really like here tonight? Well, first, let's talk a little bit about, who's going to go and who's not going to go, because that's a big question. George Kittle, Trent Williams, and Ricky Pearsall are all listed as questionable for tonight's game. Kittle has already told us he's going to go. He's going to play. And the matchup is favorable for Niner tight ends against Seattle. We'll tell you more about that in a bit. Trent Williams did not practice all week, and yet he could still go without practicing all week, but I don't think he's going to. He's got a hamstring. It's a first-time injury. They're not going to want to have it recurring. The Niners are going to the playoffs one way or another. And the last thing you want to do is lose Trent Williams, your best player, your future Hall of Fame left tackle, your blindside protector for your franchise quarterback going into the playoffs. So I think today you may want to side on the, be a little bit more conservative when it comes to Trent Williams because of what's looming ahead, because of where he is in his career, because of the nature of that injury. It's not a shoot it up and go kind of an injury. It's and we don't know. It could be anything from a slight nagging pull to a major pull / mini tear. We really don't know the status of his pull. He didn't play very much last week. He took himself out of the game. He did not practice at all this week. So Austin Pleasance played amazingly well. I mean, shockingly well last week against the Bears. Can he do that again tonight? That's a big question. And then the third guy is Ricky Pearsall. He's listed as questionable for tonight. And it's going to be a game time decision. He's got an ankle. He's got a knee. He's not 100%. He's seemingly never 100%. He's seemingly always hurt. But no for sure designation on whether or not he's going to go. They need him. They need all hands on deck for this one. There's no question. And it will be hugely disappointing if he doesn't go. So we'll find out as we get closer to game time. That's really the question on the Niner front. Is Ricky going to go? That's the big question of the day. I guess you could say Ricky and Trent, but I think Trent's not going to go. So Kittle's going to go. He's told us he's going to go. Ricky, we'll see. Trent, there are indications that he's not going to go. One guy that is going to go tonight is our guy, Greg Papa. The voice of the 49ers returns to the broadcast booth tonight at Levi Stadium. Greg, we love you, brother. Everybody here's rooting hard for you. Greg's been waging a courageous battle with leukemia since the middle of the summer, and he's getting behind the mic again, and it's an incredible accomplishment. And I'm excited for him. I'm excited for his family. I'm excited for all of our friends. I'm excited for everybody in the Niner family. Say a prayer for Greg that he gets through tonight in with flying colors. And he's the best. So any addition, I should say, of Greg Papa, we'll take him any way we get him tonight. And Greg, have a great call. If you're listening, we love you, brother. Absolutely, to the bitter end. As far as the Niners injuries beyond what we went through, Keon White had a groin strain, and he's a key guy. I mean, we're talking about a very key guy for the 49ers depleted front. But he did go Friday at practice. He's got the groin, but I think he's going to go. So look for Keon White to play a key role tonight. The other, I think, vitally important injury information is Upton Stout. Upton Stout was in the concussion protocol. Asked Shanahan about him on Tuesday. He said he was limited, but he was working through it. They were hoping to get him back. He was out of the blue non-contact jersey late in the week, and all indications is that Upton Stout's going to go. Now, this is a huge, huge thing because they just don't have anybody else. I mean, they have Chase Lucas, but they just don't have anybody beyond that even approaches what Upton Stout's been doing. Upton Stout at times has been picked on this year, but this guy is, I think, the best rookie the Niners have drafted this year and maybe in a number of years. This guy's amazing as far as smart, strong, violent, focused. He's playing maybe the toughest position on the field as a rookie and playing it pretty damn well. And so, a lot of people were like, "Oh, he's not going to play next week because it's less than 7 days between last week's game and this week's game," and all the talk about you need to be in the protocol for 7 full days. I don't know the particulars on that, but I do know that they need him badly. That he's no longer in the blue jersey, which is probably a good sign. And I'm hoping he goes tonight because they need him. I mean, this guy means so much to what they do. It's hard to believe because we're talking about a rookie mid-round pick, but that's how good this kid has been. He's so tough, so smart, so violent. He can jump a route. He can force a fumble. He flies around, reckless abandon. Just love that kid the way he plays. So hopefully he goes tonight. As far as CMC, he did have some back tightness this week, but he's been cleared to go. He's going to go. Expect a big night from Christian. Kyle Juszczyk's got a hip injury. He's going to go. Yatir Gross-Matos has got a knee injury. He's going to go. So very interesting ball game tonight on paper. I like the Niners. I like the Niners because of Brock Purdy. I really do. I like the Niners because I think Brock Purdy's better than Sam Darnold. And I think and he's a lot better than Sam Darnold recently. Now, Christian McCaffrey, I think, is going to be a guy to watch for tonight as a receiver. I think he's roughly 100, or is it 100 or 110 yards away from his second 1,000 season, which would be history. He'd be the only one ever to do 1,000 twice. And to me, that's a massive accomplishment. I mean, to me, that Kyle Shanahan is not the favorite for the coach of the year, and that Christian McCaffrey is not higher up on the list of MVP candidates, just kind of shows how everybody's just kind of slept on this Niner team this year. Because once Bosa went down, once Warner went down, everybody kind of put a line of pencil through the Niners, and thought they were done, and they're not done, and they're still alive and kicking. So McCaffrey, I expect to have a big day as a receiver. Seahawks defense is first in the NFL in yards per carry. They only give up 3.7 a carry. They're really good against the run. They're third in rushing yards per game. They give up 94 yards a game. But running backs get 22% target share against the Seattle defense. It's the highest rate in the NFL. So teams throw to their running backs often against this Seattle defense and look for the Niners to do the same with CMC. This is a historic matchup tonight as well because both these teams are hot. This is the first regular season finale in the history of the league that features two teams that have won at least 6 in a row coming in. So you got the hot Hawks and the hot Niners, and something's got to give, and it's going to be, it should be incredible. As far as, the matchups, the JV game is the Niners defense against the Seahawks offense, which is kind of middle of the road. And that's the other thing. I think this Seahawks offense looks better on statistics than they actually are. They have the fourth most points in the NFL this year off takeaways. They've scored 85 points off takeaways. If you don't turn the ball over, I think you're negating a big part of what makes them a really good offense. You say, well, that seems like the Bears last week. Exactly. The Bears led the NFL this year with 104 points off takeaways. So if you gave them a takeaway, they're going to turn it into points. The Niners gave them a takeaway. They turned it into points immediately. Seahawks are fourth on that list. And what does it really tell you? The teams at this list are Bears, Jags, Steelers, Seahawks, Vikings. Those 5 teams have been buoyed by their points off takeaways, and their offenses are probably not quite as good as they look statistically. So if you can somehow avoid the turnovers tonight, you're dealing Seattle's offense a serious blow. They need those turnovers to turn them into points. So the JV game is the Niners D against the Seattle O. Both of these special teams units are top 2 in the NFL. This is really good special teams against really good special teams. But the varsity game is this Niners offense against the Seahawk defense. That's the elite matchup. Brock Purdy against Mike McDonald, Kyle Shanahan against Sam Darnold, Kyle Shanahan against Michael McDonald and Nick Emanwari and Julian Love and this Seahawk defense, which is good on all three levels. I do find it interesting that the Niners and the Seahawks build exactly the opposite. The Niners defense, they build from the front to the back, and the Seahawks invest from the back to the front. So they've invested high picks in their secondary, and they've got a really, really good secondary. You can make an argument that their secondary might be the best. Nicky Manwari's a freak, absolute freak. Huge, fast, talented. He's their nickel corner, and he could play linebacker. That's how big he is. Devin Witherspoon might be the best cornerback in the league. He's definitely among the best cornerbacks in the league. First round pick in 2023. Kobe Bryant, who plays free safety, was the Thorpe Award winner at Cincinnati back in college. Julian Love, great player at Notre Dame, then went to the New York Giants and came to the Hawks in free agency. And then they have Reek Woolen, who's a gigantic jumbo, corner who's slated to be a free agent at the end of the year. We're talking about a 6'4" corner. So the Niners are going to be challenged in the secondary for sure. This front, it's a 3-4 under front that they have. And what makes them so tough is that Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy are just monsters. I mean, Williams moves great, and he could play any spot on the defensive line from nose tackle to defensive end. And he'll back down passes. He gets to the quarterback. He's strong as heck. He's really quick. And then Byron Murphy is a huge man with a ton of speed, who's playing really well. They also have Jaron Reed, who's enormously strong at the point. DeMarcus Lawrence came over from Dallas. He's finding himself, kind of refound himself in this defense. He's had a bust out. Dallas thought he was done. Well, guess what? He wasn't done. He was on a bad defense, and now he's on a good defense. And then at linebacker, it's amazing. A year ago, Mike McDonald had Terrell Dodson and Jerome Baker, and he was just like, no, we don't like these guys. Dump them. Dumped them, traded for Ernest Jones the fourth. Jones has just been a revelation. This year, they've discovered this kid, Drake Thomas, out of NC State. He's 5'10". He's an incredible coverage linebacker. They have Uchenna Nwosu. Nwosu is a big-time player going back to college. So, I mean, this is a good defense on all three levels. And the Niners yet roll in doing a ton on offense. Purdy's never looked better. Shanahan's in his bag. The Niners are cooking offensively. So that's the varsity game. Can the Niners offense, do it against this number 2 defense? That's where the Seahawks reside. They're number 2 in points allowed. If you go back to the game in week 1, and I watched that one again just last night, man, George Kittle barely played. He only played 21 snaps because of the hamstring. CMC could not run in that first game. He only averaged 3.1 a carry. Jake Moody was still the kicker, and the Niners special teams was still a circus. And the Niners special teams and Moody cost the Niners 11 expected points. Niners won 17-13, but they could have won by a lot more if the special teams had played, better. But they were still kind of finding their way on special teams. Brock threw 2 picks. The Niners had 9 penalties in the game, and still they wound up winning on the road, courtesy of the Jake Tonjes amazing grab on the Purdy duck. Let's call it what it was. It was an absolute duck. So, tonight's going to be interesting. What can the 49ers do to slow down Sam Darnold? If the Niners clinch the number 1 seed, they will have made history because they ranked dead last in sacks. No team has ever done that. No team's been dead last in sacks and been the number 1 seed in their respective conferences playoffs. But the Niners are about to do that if they win tonight. 49ers on the year have 18 sacks. I mean, to put that in perspective, Nick Bosa 3 years ago had 18 and a half by himself. The Niners as a team have 18. The second worst is the Jets. They have 26. The Niners are far and away the worst pass rushing team in all of football. Denver, by comparison, has 64 sacks. The Niners have 18. I mean, that's just unbelievable. I mean, in some ways, it's really crazy. Shanahan and Lynch, took over the team saying, we want to emphasize the defensive line. What if they won the Super Bowl this year in a year where they produced 18 sacks as a team? That'll be something. I like the Niners tonight. Why? Because Purdy owns Seattle. He's 6-1 against them. The Niners lead the league, scoring almost 36 points a game since he came back from the injury. I think he keeps it rolling. Sam Darnold has 20 turnovers on the year. Brock Purdy is going to be more efficient than Sam Darnold, and the Niners are going to beat the Hawks. All right, Steve Raible is going to stop by next. We'll get his thoughts on this matchup as we continue. It's 49er Forecast as we've extended the pregame show a few hours. Not really, but we're here between 10 and 11, and we'll talk little Niners with Steve Raible. The voice of the Hawks is next on the Sports Leader.
KNBR, the Sports Leader. This is where you get your faithful fix. 49ers Forecast with Larry Krueger keeps rolling on KNBR, the sports leader.
All right, welcome back to 49er Forecast as we get you ready for the Niners and the Hawks. And what a game it is going to be at Levi's. Week 18 has arrived. These teams haven't played since week 1 up in Seattle. And joining us on the UMA guest line to chop it up and give us a little breakdown is Steve Raible, I should say, the Seahawks radio announcer. Guy who's been around the Hawks, an original member of the expansion Seahawks. Second round pick back in 1976, and he's with us on the UMA guest line. Steve, how are you?
I'm great, Larry. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and people down here are really chomping at the bit to get this one underway. I'm sure the Seahawks and their fans are really excited. Are the Seahawks the best team in football? I mean, I asked that because they're number 2 in points scored. They're number 2 in points allowed. Old coach once said to me, "Hey, yards, and in points." It's all about points.
Yeah.
Are they the best team going right now?
Well, I would sort of say yes. I'm sure Greg, Papa, and some others might say something different. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, if you look at how many points we've allowed and how many points we've scored, which is the big thing, the point differential for us right now is incredible. And that's going back to some of the Super Bowl teams that we've had in the past. So, I think all around. Now, are we playing our best football? That's probably up for debate, maybe a little more inconsistent at times than Mike McDonald and the players would like to be. But overall, I think this is a really well-balanced team. I was talking to Dave Canales, who's the head coach at Carolina this last weekend when we went down there to play the Panthers. And he said, we obviously they beat the Rams, they beat the Packers. They've lost to some teams as well, but they're still in the hunt. They're going to be playing for their division title as well. And he said, you know what? The more I looked at the Seahawks, he said, the more complete your team looks. He said from start to finish, all through the first 53 and probably down through the practice squad as well. And that's all 3 phases: offense, defense, special teams. The most competent, the most complete group that he's scouted. So. You got to take a look at that as well. I think a lot of folks out there think that the Seahawks are the best, if not one of the best.
I know you're here to talk about this year's Seahawks, but let's talk about you for a second, because you were a second-round pick in the 76 draft. You played wide receiver for 6 seasons under Jack Patera, and you played with Largent.
Yeah.
And you're watching a guy who, I'm not saying he's Largent, but he's very, very good, JSN. And you know this position incredibly well. So give me your impressions, Steve, of what it was like to play with Largent and what an incredible talent JSN is and how he's emerged here in the second year. I asked Shanahan about him, and he said he's got this knack against zone coverage that you rarely see.
Yeah, well, to the Largent thing first, and I always, Steve and I kid all the time when we see each other, and he's still, after 50 years now, he's still like a brother to me. We roomed together our first year, our rookie seasons, and then he went off and started rooming with Jim Zorn, and I had a backup quarterback that I roomed with, but we still remain great friends. And I always like to tell him that he only catches about 2/3 of his passes if I'm not clearing out guys down the middle of the field for him, and he appreciates that. He doesn't believe it, but he appreciates it. We've had a conversation around here about Jackson Smith and Jigba a couple of times on the very thing that you're talking about, where, who is he? What is he? Why is he so darn good? And one of the things that we've come up with is that just about every one of the great receivers, if you took the top 10 receivers in history, starting with Jerry Rice and working your way down the list, he's got something from all of them. And when I watch him, I'm amazed how smooth he is, how much faster he seems on the field than he timed in the combine or anything else, how quick he is out of his breaks, what great hands he has. He adjusts to the ball so well. He can run over people. He's just an amazing, and he's an amazing kid too. He's really smart and just a really nice, quiet, humble guy. who makes plays like I've not seen since Largent's days. And we've had some pretty good receivers here. So I don't think if health stays for him, if he can stay healthy for a good career, he'll just smash all of the records in this franchise and become one of the very best, right up there with well, I don't know about the Jerrys and the rest, Larry Fitzgerald and all those guys, but boy, he sure is good.
And if you look at his body type, he's 6 feet, he's 195. He's not like you're like, whoa, that he's huge. And it's not like he's some, Tyreek Hill burner where, oh my God, you got to give this guy tons of cushion and he eats up that cushion. No, but he's just the ball skills, the route running, the hands, the breaks, no wasted steps, the as you said, the intellect. Has anybody, Steve, had any success slowing him down? Was there any game? I'm looking at it. I had him on my fantasy team this year, and he was just a regular. I mean, he was just he led the team. I mean, we needed him. Would you say that? But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that he had a bad game. Did anybody have any success defending him this year?
Yeah, I want to say the Vikings. I think, I'm kind of like in the playing days. You put off or you put out of your mind what you did before, and you don't think about what's down the line. You only think about the very next game. But I think it was the Vikings game. I think he only had like, I don't know, less than 50 yards or something. They did a pretty good job against him, and we beat the Vikings, fairly handily. But we did a lot of other things well, and some other guys stepped up and made some plays. And that's the thing about this football team. You talked about, are they the best in football? Well, we've got a lot of weapons. And if you're going to try to double up JSN on every play, we've got Cooper Kupp, who was the Super Bowl MVP, Triple Crown winner from just a few seasons ago. We've got a tight end in A.J. Barner, who is just playing lights out right now. So, and we can run the football. So, you pick your spots defensively if you're going to try to take somebody away. But I think he's only had one game that was considered subpar, and that's only because he had like a half a dozen guys around him most of the time. But if you're gonna single him up, or even if you're gonna double him on the outside, he's going to get in behind the cornerback and in front of the safety and make a catch out there on the sidelines. That's just what he does.
Barner's been really good in the red zone. I thought the Niners caught a break with Elijah Arroyo being out because Arroyo's got crazy wide receiver-like ball skills and movement ability. But Barner has been just an absolute threat. What a revelation he's been in the red zone this year, huh?
Yeah, both. He's a receiver. He's a terrific blocker. He is the guy that does we call it up here the barnyard. For Barner, we need a barnyard. So, but that's our tush push. And he's the guy that does that. And I think he's made it every single time he's tried, including scoring a touchdown off of it. He also has picked up a really great kind of cadence, and he's drawn some teams into the neutral zone for an offsides, and he never had to run the football then. And we pick up 5 and a first down. He really has been terrific. And he's a real spark plug too. Great energy, fires up the guys. Good kid to talk to. So well, you don't know it like I know it, Larry, but I'm really old. You're old, but I'm really and so young guys don't necessarily just walk up to you and start talking, even if you're the broadcast voice of the team, because they don't know who you are necessarily. AJ Barner, almost from the first day, has walked up and started talking and hasn't stopped yet. He's just great. He's a great kid to be around.
How about Rashid Shaheed? John Schneider, I think, is one of the best GMs going. I know Niner fans don't like to hear me say that, but I really believe it. I've met John a few times. I've talked to him. I used to scout with some in the Canadian League and with the Cardinals in the 90s, and I know a lot of people that know him well. And, John has done an incredible job turning this football team around and kind of reshuffling the roster. But I love the pickup of Rashid Shaheed from New Orleans. And Shaheed has given this team a shot in the arm, hasn't he?
Oh, without question. As a kick returner, so he's got a 100-yard kick return for a touchdown. He's got a 58-yard punt return for a touchdown. He's got a number of other good kick returns mixed in there. He's a terrific receiver. And it took him, even though he knew the offense, he had played for Clint Kubiak, our offensive coordinator in New Orleans, where we traded to get him. Even though he knew the offense, there were always a few differences in verbiage or exactly how you're going to run that particular pass play, how you're going to draw it up. but he has really caught on quickly, and he's become a huge part of this football team. Another really great kid. He's just like JSN that way. He's kind of a quiet young man, very, very smart, very well-spoken kid. We're just hoping that he's going to be okay. He got, boy, this last game in Carolina, he got hit out of bounds, banged his knee into his head into one of the coach's knees, and he had to be checked for a concussion. He never came back into the game after that. So a short week. We're just hoping that he's going to be okay. I tend to think he will be, but I haven't heard anything from the coaches yet. So we won't know probably until maybe even as late as Friday as to whether he's going to be available. But boy, he sure is a real playmaker for us.
Steve Raible with us on the UMA guest line as we look ahead to Niners Hawks, and you mentioned Clint Kubiak, and it's the brothers, right? Clay's here as the OC, and Clint's there, and you guys last year, didn't run the ball very much. You threw it more than anybody, and now you bring in Sam Darnold for Geno, but the real impact, it seems like, is coming from Kubiak. What has been the impact of Clint Kubiak this year?
I think that from the very first day, he just came in and said, we're going to run the ball, period. And that's what his calling card has been, the outside run, the outside zone run scheme, getting guys off the line of scrimmage, moving forward, doubling at the point of attack, and then sliding off to the next level. And he brought, I think what was maybe the best thing about all of this was that he brought the other guys with him, his offensive line coach, his run game coordinator, Rick Dennison, who used to be a linebacker with the Broncos, for crying out loud, a really good coach. Benton, the offensive line, and their quarterback coach as well, brought all those guys with them from New Orleans. So they all have a great working relationship. They can speak the language instantly. Then it was just a matter of each one of those coaches teaching that language to every player. And that's what started back in OTAs and mini camps and training camp and all the rest. So now it's taken, half the season to really start to get what we feel like this offense is capable of doing, running the football. And now the last 2 weeks we've had 2 100-yard rushers. K9, Ken Walker against the Rams on Thursday night, and then this last Sunday, Charbonnet against the Panthers. So Kubiak has a great sense for this offense. He's got a really nice idea on how to run and mix in the play action. Sam Darnold is terrific in play action, especially on the bootlegs, one way or the other. So I think this fits our offense, fits our team and our players very well.
Is Cross, what's his status? Is he out, or I know he's been injured the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, we don't know yet. He's got a hamstring. He got, I think it was on the final field goal of the game against somebody here last week, 2 weeks ago. Like I said, they all run together after a while. But yeah, he kind of got really stretched in an awkward position and strained a hamstring a little bit. So they want to be careful. We need him down the stretch. We're going to the playoffs regardless of what happens on Saturday night. So we need to make sure that he's healthy. Josh Jones, we picked up from Baltimore as a free agent this last offseason, and he's filled in the last 2 games really well. He's been a terrific player for us. But Cross, he's the real deal at left tackle. So we're hoping he's going to be healthy enough to play in this game. But again, as we said, if we can get through this one, we're going to be playing again at some point. So let's get him ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Zabel was another great pick by Schneider. I mean, he stepped in at left guard. He's been just fantastic almost all year. It seems like with Seattle, Steve, comes down to Darnold. I mean, Darnold's got a ton of talent. He's a great guy. I mean, I got a chance to know him down here and interview him a bunch. I mean, I really believe that Sam's a terrific guy. I'm glad he found his spot there. But he turns the ball over sometimes a little bit more than you'd like, and he has done it sometimes in some big moments. What's your, as a former receiver, what do you see with Darnold?
Well, the first thing I see is that all those turnovers aren't his fault. And they never are.
Right.
Usually, quarterback, there's a whole host of reasons why things like that happen. But it all ends up being the stat that rests on the quarterback's shoulders. Sam is as accurate a passer as I think I've ever seen. He can make all the throws. He's really terrific in fitting that ball into tight spaces. Now, I will say that after the Rams game, and they did a really good job of kind of confusing the looks and having people where he didn't expect them to be, threw a couple of interceptions there, 4 in total. That was a tough game, and he kind of maybe has backed off a little bit of trying to fire that ball into really tight spaces. But then again, a touchdown pass against the Rams on a Thursday night in the back of the end zone, it had to be thrown perfectly between 2 defenders, just to where JSN could get it, and it was a perfect pass. So he can still do all those things. He can move laterally. He's not the fleetest of foot. He's not going to be a scrambling type quarterback, but he can get you out of trouble. He can extend plays. He's really smart. And I think the thing, after talking to Clint and talking to his other coaches, the thing about Sam is he's got a really short memory. So when there is one of those turnovers, if there is the ball knocked out of his hand and because the blocking broke down a little bit or they were blitzing, couldn't pick up everybody, ball gets knocked away on the ground, throw an interception. The next play, he is all about what's next and not about what just happened. And that's a remarkable thing for a quarterback. I remember as a player, boy, if I made a mistake, and trust me, I made plenty of them, it eats at you. You think, oh man, if I had just doesn't he goes back, looks at the iPad on the sidelines, and then comes right back out for the next series. He's really a very special guy that way.
It's going to be an interesting game because Sam and Brock are good friends. Sam told me in his kind of final days with the Niners that he got a lot out of playing for Shanahan, but he got even more out of being around Brock Purdy and watching Brock's preparation and how detailed Brock was in his preparation. And now they go head to head for the number 1 seed in the NFC. It's going to be absolutely juicy. Let's flip the card quickly and talk about the defense, because Michael McDonald, Steve, a couple of years ago with the Ravens on Christmas, had probably the best day I think I've ever seen anybody have against Shanahan and Purdy. What he did was he blitzed the slot corner when the Niners went to the condensed formations. He blitzed his slot corner off the edge and got home, and then dropped some really good defenders into the middle of the field and kind of clouded the middle of the field, and they came away with interceptions, tip balls, and there were a couple lucky breaks, but it was brilliant game plan by McDonald. What do you think of McDonald overall as a defensive coach? Have you had a lot of dialogue with him throughout the year?
Oh yeah. I interview him twice a week, every week. We do an interview for our radio station, and then we do a pregame interview that airs about 30 minutes before kick on Sunday. And so I've gotten to know him, I think, pretty well. And I am really impressed. He's first of all, he's brilliant. When your own players say, hey, he's the professor, he's the wizard, he knows all these, that's a pretty good indication right there. But then you watch what he does, and you watch how he goes about it. Setting aside defense for a minute, just what he's done as a head coach, just his ability to rally guys together, to focus on what's important, to work within the process that they have put together. Process is his favorite word next to connected. Those 2 words are very big for Mike and his players and his staff. But he was like born to do this when you talk to him and look at what he's accomplished. Great head coach. Listen, he has a chance to win. What do we got? With 13 wins right now. The best record for any Seahawks head coach was 13 wins, and nobody's won 14 games. And he has a chance to win 10 plus games 2 straight years. No coach won in his rookie season here in Seattle 10 games, and he did it. So he's a really good coach. Defensively, there's no stone goes unturned. And maybe the best thing about Mike is he understands that you can't overload the players. Here's what we do. Here's who we are. Here's how we're going to try to accomplish slowing these guys down. You got to imagine, I haven't talked to him yet this week, but you got to imagine Christian McCaffrey is going to be the guy that they focus on. Every team does. And yet he still comes up with what do you have, 140 yards rushing on Sunday? I mean, the guy is ridiculous.
He
He
is.
find a way to slow him down. And when he's not running the ball, he's catching the ball and then running with it. So he's going to be such a big part of it. And then you got to find a way to keep Purdy from beating you with his legs. He can throw the football. Maybe we can get guys in those line of sight and cause some issues there. But you can't let him get outside the box, because then he's really going to hurt you with his feet. So it's a big job playing against these Niners, a huge job. But I think Mike is ready for it. I know his defense is.
The way he changed the linebackers, he had Jerome Baker, he had Terrell Dodson. This is a year ago. And he just was like, these aren't the guys. And they made that trade for Ernest Jones, the fourth. What an absolute revelation he's been. And then he invented this guy, Drake Thomas. I mean, out of NC State. And we're seeing kind of those hybrid defenders that are they safeties? Are they linebackers? He's got Eman Wari, who's faster than everybody and bigger and stronger. And I mean, it's very interesting how defense has evolved, especially at linebacker. It used to be Matt Millen and the 4'9" guy with the neck roll, and now if you're not if you're 4'7", you're going to get picked on. If you got to be like in that 4'5", even sub 4'5" range. What do you think of the evolution of linebacker? And Mike's been right in the middle of it. He was very decisive in changing out his linebackers, and the moves have worked out brilliantly.
Yeah, well, I think that the change on defense has come because of the changes in offense. The offense has gone to much more of a passing game here in the pros. It used to be, of course, it was 50 years now since I played with the Seahawks, since I started playing with the Seahawks, but it was almost always, two-back set, fullback, leading the way, split backs, whatever, I-back formation, tight end. And now you've got all these variant formations, pistols and what have you, with one running back. Sometimes that running back turns out to be a wide receiver. You never know. We actually have gone back, as a number of teams have done. The Niners do it with Juszczyk. We've got a kid named Robbie Oots, who's a rookie out of Alabama, who's our fullback. This guy was at one time a defensive lineman, and he's a fullback, or he was a tight end, I beg your pardon. And yet he has become just a terrific lead blocker. Now, we don't use him every play, but it gives the defense something else to think about. But with the fact that so many receivers are running so many crazy routes, and you're flooding one zone, and you're doing this, and you're doing that, you got to have guys who can run at that linebacker spot. You're not just stepping up and plugging a hole and daring them to run right over you, because that's not the way offenses work anymore. And so Mike, along with other coaches, but Mike certainly understands what it takes to play within the system he wants to play. Drake Thomas is a great example. He's the kid who's moved in next to Ernest Jones at one of those two inside backers. And he's 6 feet tall, maybe 6 feet tall, 220 pounds, but he can really run, and he will hit you a ton. He's good in coverage, all those things that you need a linebacker to be these days. Look at Ernest Jones. He's got 6 interceptions. He's like in the top 3 of interceptions in the league. He's an inside linebacker, for crying out loud.
Right.
So that shows you what we like to do with our linebackers, and that's, getting them in the middle of the field, getting them back there in those passing lanes. That doesn't always work, but that's kind of the thought here. And then with a guy like Nick Eman-Wari, what you talked about, John Schneider, what a great find. They thought that they got a second first-round pick by getting this kid in the second round, and he has proven them right. He is amazing. He can do so many things defensively.
2 last ones before we let you go. We really appreciate your time. You mentioned Eman Wari. Let's focus on him for a second. How do they utilize him? I mean, he's big enough to be a linebacker. He's fast enough to run with anybody, basically. You can play him as a nickel, right? You can play him as an outside corner. You could play him in the box as a safety. He could be Cam Chancellor, but he also potentially could be Earl Thomas. I mean, he's really a crazy, almost kind of a cutting edge, futuristic type athlete that, like, it's like he's from 2040 or something. How has McDonald utilized him, and is he 100%? I know that he got nicked up a couple games ago.
Yeah, he's first of all, he's fine. He's playing well. And you answered the question. All of the above, everything that you just said about Nick is what he can do. And in fact, there are times we've lined him up on the end man on the line of scrimmage as an outside linebacker, or even a wide defensive end, and rushed him. He can blitz. He really is good in that slot corner. And the good thing about that is that now brings you in closer in the box, And so from there, he can blitz. If we play zone, he can kind of drop off and get that underneath area outside in the flat, or he can drop back into the hook zones, depending on what the defense called is. He's also a really sure tackler. He makes a decision, very much like Earl used to do, and very much like Devin Witherspoon does for us now. He decides and bang, puts his foot in the ground and goes, and he makes a play. And the other thing about our defense is nobody on our defense thinks the first guy is going to make the tackle. So what you're always thinking is the next guy coming along, and then the next guy and the next guy. So you never assume that somebody's going to make the tackle. You just put 7 guys, 8 guys there where the ball is, and you make the play. And that's kind of the philosophy that they go by. And Eamon Morey is always around the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he's just so good. The guy that I think is just absolutely brilliant, and maybe it's just because he's so great against the Niners, but Julian Love, what an addition. I mean, I loved him at Notre Dame. Then he goes to the Giants. I don't know what the Giants were thinking. I mean, the Giants are probably a bad team because they let guys like this out the door. I mean, this guy is awesome. And when he's healthy, he picks off passes. He's good against the run. I mean, he's just a phenomenal player. I mean, is he the leader of the defense? And it's interesting to me, Steve, too, that the Niners and the Seahawks are both believe in building on defense, but the Seahawks build from back to front, and the Niners usually invest from front to back. And Love is a perfect example. They went out and hunted him in free agency, and he's awesome.
Yeah, I think, if I had to say how the Seahawks built defensively, I would say that the key to our defense is our front. It's big guys, it's strong guys, it's guys who can take on double teams. It's guys who can move laterally, and it's guys who play relentlessly. So those are the guys that we have up front. And now you back them up with a couple of linebackers who can go sideline to sideline, or you have the guys deep in the secondary who can make plays all over the field. And Julian is one of those guys. And oh, by the way, he's another one of those quiet guys, really nice kid, really intelligent guy who will come up and knock you ass end over tea kettle. And
Yeah.
that's just the kind of players that John and Mike want on the defense.
Well, we'll finish on the front line. Leonard Williams. Every time I watch Leonard Williams, he looks like an all-pro.
Yeah.
Then Byron Murphy was terrific at Texas. I know there were some injuries, but he's a gigantic man who can move really, really well. And DeMarcus Lawrence has, gotten out of Dallas and kind of refound his joy maybe, and he just looks like a totally different player. But I asked Shanahan, I said, what do they do blitz-wise? And he said that's what he thinks makes McDonald really tough, is that they're very sound, he said. No, they don't give up explosives, and they'll stay in that 2 shell, and they're hard to run against. But he said it's the blitz, the timing of the blitzes, and where he brings them from. He said McDonald's really genius at that. What do you see with their front and with their blitz package?
Yeah, and in fact, we don't blitz as much as a lot of teams do, but it looks like we're blitzing because the way the guys put pressure on quarterbacks from all angles, and the fact that we'll put 5 or 6 guys there at the line of scrimmage. Okay, you offensive linemen, you decide who's going to be rushing and who's not, and invariably they'll make the wrong decision, and that's what you're going for if you're the head coach and the guy who calls the defense. But you have to be so good at that. You have to be so sound in your A design, B your execution, and that's what Mike has these guys doing. So yeah, the guys up front, Leo Williams is as good as I've seen. And again, all these guys, they play for each other. They don't care who gets the credit. They don't care who gets the numbers. Let's just all go out there. And if we keep playing the way we know we can play, we're going to win a lot of football games. And here we are sitting at 13-3, looking hopefully to get past the Niners on Saturday night.
The voice of the Seahawks. Steve, thanks for your time.
Yeah.
KNBR, the sports leader. Faithful, time to make some Niners noise. 49ers Forecast with Larry Krueger now continues on your proud home of 49ers football. KNBR, the sports leader.
Well, it looks like we lost the connection with Larry, so I'll sign off for Larry. Go Niners.